So flagship phones are fast. They've been really fast and really powerful for a while now, which is why it's no longer enough just to make a phone faster than last year's phone, because everybody already has a fast phone. So what they have to do in new flagships, and typically what we see, is a combination of these four things. They add a new aesthetic. They make it look really different, really shiny. They make it fold in half, somehow look better than other phones on the market. The second thing is adding new features, whether that's a magnet on the back like the iPhone did, or a stylus, or it folds in half, some kind of feature that other phones don't have. The third thing is you improve the cameras, whether that's adding more cameras or doing things with cameras that we haven't seen before. So for example, the Pixels did this with astrophotography. And then the fourth thing, which we don't see nearly as much, is appeal to a wider audience. Put some software on there or somehow make it more accessible for people who otherwise are not served in the market. And this year, all four of those are tackled with the OPPO Find X3 Pro. So in this video, we're going to talk about those four major categories and how the OPPO Find X3 Pro actually does those, and how this is a strong early contender for one of the best Android phones of the year. It's very fast, very powerful, yes, but it also has an incredible aesthetic, as you see right there, just an absolute smooth curved glass on the back. It's all one piece, and we'll talk more about that in a second. It has new cameras on there, 2 amazing camera sensors, and it has that new feature I was talking about. It actually has a microscope camera. So we'll test that out and see what that actually does and if it's even useful. So with that being said, guys, let's get into this video. One thing I want to mention is that this is actually sponsored by OPPO, so special thanks to OPPO for sending this phone over here. And because of that, it's technically not a normal review. I'm just going to talk about the things I like with this phone. And the good news is there's a lot of stuff I genuinely do like about the OPPO Find X3 Pro. So getting through those four categories, the first thing we want to talk about is actually the aesthetic. And this is something that OPPO talked a lot about in the release. As you can see on the back, there is actually 2 colors. So they have a matte blue one, kind of a really cool looking color. And then this one they call black. It depends where you point it because it's more of like a really high gloss kind of mirror finish. But the glass on the back is just such an amazing curve to that. I like how they're really accenting the camera bump rather than having like a separate like thing jutting out of the phone. As a nice, smooth, subtle curve up there, which means that you don't see this big eyesore on the back. Instead, it feels really nice. Looking at it, it protrudes just as far as a lot of other phones, but it doesn't look like it does because you have that illusion from that nice curve. It's all one piece of glass, and I mean, even as OPPO said in the release, this takes a lot of effort, a lot of design work, and I think it's definitely worth it. Looking at this phone, I haven't seen phones that really look like this. On top of that, even though it is a mirror finish, it doesn't collect quite as many fingerprints as I expected, although I would recommend if you guys are not getting a case for this and you're worried about fingerprints, the blue one might be a better pick. Now, the aesthetic on the back I think looks really nice, but besides just the back, the aesthetic on the front is also pretty important. And this ties in with the cameras as well, but the display on here is 120 Hz at Quad HD Plus, which is great. That's something that we didn't see on like the S21 Plus, for example, and a lot of other flagships. So you have an amazing screen on here, and the color on here is also incredible. So 10-bit color, it's a full billion color screen. So that in itself, we'll talk more about later on in the video, but it gives you a really nice aesthetic there. Now, within the screen, I mean, I'll talk a little bit more about physically what we're dealing with here. This is a 6.7-inch screen. It's Quad HD Plus, like I said, and you have an in-screen fingerprint sensor on the bottom. So really nice, subtle. You don't have any kind of like fingerprint sensor, a big notch on the top, nothing like that. Everything is really invisible. It just works behind the scenes. You have a button on the right side that is your power button, nice little green accent on there. And then on the left side, we have our volume up and volume down button to control, obviously, the volume. On the bottom, we have our power port, which is USB Type-C. Of course, you can plug in headphones or earbuds, which do come in the box. Another big plus, it comes with a charger, a block, and earbuds in the box for your phone. To the left of that, we have our SIM tray, which is actually a dual SIM on the top, and on the bottom of that, we have a microphone, and we have our speaker on the right side. Now on the top, we have our other microphone, and that's pretty much everything you're looking at going around this phone. So really nice, slim design. Now, even though it's not necessarily a lot thinner than most other phones, again, with that glass, the curves on the back, they did an excellent job making it feel lighter and thinner. So it does feel really sleek and really slim in the hands, and definitely a futuristic design, obviously. All right, so that's category number 1, the aesthetics of this phone. Honestly, I'm a big fan of the curved glass on the back. I wish more phones would do that kind of style, just to kind of blend in the camera bump more. And I mean, I apologize, guys. It is so hard to film this because it is a very reflective phone, but it looks really cool in real life. And that brings us into category 2, which is the cameras on this phone. And this phone actually has 4 cameras. So we have the wide angle, the ultra wide angle, the telephoto, and we have a micro lens, which is, you might be thinking like, oh, another macro lens, but it's not a macro lens. It's not for taking pictures of bugs. It's actually like a microscope. So you zoom in like 30 to 60x, and I'll talk about that in the features section because honestly, it is a camera, but that's an entire feature in itself. So we'll get to that in a second. So looking at the other 3 lenses. Now, it's very common to see one main lens, like your wide angle lens, and that's what you focus on. And the other 2 are just kind of additional lenses you have. But on this phone, OPPO really made it a point to emphasize that you have 2 main lenses. So you have the ultra wide camera and the wide angle camera, and both of these have the same sensor. So they both have the Sony IMX766 sensor on there, which is an incredible sensor, giving you 50 megapixels for the wide angle shots, 50 megapixels for the ultra wide shots, and the color consistency is incredible. They're both 10-bit color, so you have a full 10-bit system on here from the cameras on the back all the way to the display on the front, so you can really get some amazing colors. So it's hard to show you on this video exactly what the color looks like, obviously, because I don't know what screen you're using right now, and of course YouTube compresses videos, but in real life, the color on here is incredible. Now, the other lens we have is the telephoto lens, which is 13 megapixels, and it's a 5x hybrid telephoto lens. So looking at some photos here, the wide angle lens looks really good, and this video will not do any justice to the 10-bit color, but you'll see that still there's a lot of sharpness, a lot of detail. It looks really good, and along with that, the ultra wide lens is also very consistent with more great color, more great detail. Overall, a really solid camera. 2x zoom still has a ton of detail, looks really good, and then we can go into the 5x hybrid telephoto lens, which still holds a lot of detail, and we can even zoom in all the way up to 20x. You can still see what it is, but you probably won't post that on your Instagram. Then the rear camera also does portrait mode, as you can see here. It did a great job of detecting the edges, good skin tones, good color balance, and then here, when I'm in a shadow, it still looks really good. So overall, did a good job with that. The selfie portrait mode also looked really good, a little bit warmer and a little bit more clarity around my head, but overall really good. All right, so this is what it looks like in 4K 30. I'm walking around right now and the stabilization is fantastic. So no matter how much I move, it's just like a smooth cinematic shot. And that's not with any kind of ultra stabilization mode on right now. This is just the standard video. Now we can also zoom, so let's zoom out, and very consistent color zooming out to the ultra wide lens. As we zoom in, it jumps in, and we can just keep zooming in all the way up to, it looks like 20x zoom it's gonna take us to. 20x zoom, we can still take it, it's still really steady, and honestly pretty decent. A little bit of focus hunting there, because we're looking at some sticks obviously, but looking at this one right here, you can see it does a fantastic job. Let's bring it back out to the standard wide angle lens, and again, this is what it sounds like when I'm holding the phone. So this is obviously the rear camera, and this is what it sounds like when I'm in front of the camera. So there's a microphone on the back. This is again 4K 30. This also does 4K 60 though, so overall a fantastic camera. Very impressed with this, but you guys can leave a comment. Let me know how the color looks, the sharpness, comment all of that in the comments below. All right, now we're gonna see how this actually looks, but this also has this other mode, which is like video in video mode. So they call it dual video mode. You can change the shape, and like I'm obviously up here in the corner, and you can have 2 videos at once. So it's kind of a cool way to vlog if you're looking to do that and show what's around you and show yourself. Just another tool you can do with this phone. All right, now this is the front-facing camera, which is limited to 1080p, slightly more shaky than the rear cameras, but it should get the job done. You guys can leave a comment and let me know how this looks as well, and that's pretty much it for the video test. All right, so that's the camera test, but I know on YouTube it's not always the easiest to see that, so I'm actually gonna share those all on Twitter. If you guys wanna like see the photos and zoom in and see the details, you can go check out my Twitter. It's at Michael Bryan with 2 N's, so it's at Michael Bryan, and I'll show you on the screen right there. Also a link down in the description, so you can go check out those photos after this video. All right, category number 3 is the new features on this phone. And so with a lot of new phones, we're seeing all kinds of new features. Some of them we asked for, some of them we didn't ask for, but no matter what, it comes to the question of, would I actually use that, or is that something just to sell me the phone? And on this one, I'll let you guys answer in a comment below, but the extra addition on here is actually the microscope lens, which personally I think is a really cool lens. You can zoom all the way in up to 60x on something really, really close. And what you don't actually realize right away is there is a little ring light around it. So even if you're setting it flat on a dark surface, it has that light and you can see like anything you're looking at. You're looking at like a match, your skin, a piece of paper. You can even look at a screen on a laptop or whatever you're looking at and see the individual pixels. So I think it's really cool. When OPPO presented it, they really talked about using this as like an educational tool for your kids or for, I mean, a ton of different stuff. If you're walking around, you want to see like a plant leaf, I think it's a really cool feature, honestly, personally. I don't know if you're gonna be like posting those photos on your Instagram necessarily. Like, it's a little bit different from the camera. So that's why I kind of separated this into its own category, because it's a really cool tool to use your phone as a microscope, but it's very much different from what you normally use your cameras for. So personally, I think it's a cool feature, but leave a comment and let me know what you guys think. So getting into category 4, which is how this appeals to a larger audience of people, I want to first talk about the operating system. So obviously it's running Android, but on top of that, we have ColorOS. And this is a ColorOS 11.2. In the past, honestly, I was not the biggest fan of ColorOS, but this year they started adding some cool features, and I'm really starting to like this. So on the bottom, one of the first features I want to mention is the fingerprint sensor. If you tap and hold, and then you swipe up to maybe any direction you want, as you can see right here, you can get to a shortcut. So cool way to open Snapchat or a camera or whatever app you want. If your phone's off, you can get in there very, very quickly. So that's one big plus. The next thing is the customizable dark mode always on display. So it shows you like the time, the date, notifications, and you can customize that any way you want. So I think that looks really cool. It's nice to have that feature on there. We also have game space on here, which allows you to control how far you're really pushing this phone when you're playing games. If you want to save battery, or if you really want to push the limits and get the best graphics and the best performance, you can control all of that in game space. So if anyone's playing games, that's a big positive there. And then another feature I was debating adding, but honestly, I kind of like it. It's the OPPO Relax, which they have a bunch of different sounds, and it's just like white noise you can play if you're gonna take a nap, or if you wanna just focus on something and have some white noise in the background. There's a bunch of sounds, you can set timers, and that just comes pre-installed on your phone. And then, of course, the big feature I was talking about in the operating system is actually the color vision enhancement. So, like I said before, I believe it's 1 in 5 men and about 1 in 200 women have a color deficiency. And so on this phone, they actually are able to compensate for that. So the first thing is the Munsell 100 test. So they give you a test, you have to like arrange colors around, and it's basically a color deficiency test. And then after that, it'll help you decide how to actually set up your phone. So if you're not color deficient, then there's no change. But if you are color deficient, there's a bunch of different options to make the display look better. And this is going to help people that, like I said, are either colorblind or somehow color deficient. This phone should be able to separate the two different colors that you're struggling with. All right, guys, so that's everything I have for you with the OPPO Find X3 Pro. First impressions, I mean, this is obviously a very impressive phone. Thanks again to OPPO for sending this over and sponsoring this video. If you guys are interested in checking out this phone, I'll have a link in the description. Of course, I will also continue to test this, so if you guys want to see the full camera results, go check out my Twitter. Of course, I'm also going to be releasing a 1 month later or maybe a 2 week later video of this after I continue to test it. So if you want to see that video, make sure you go down and click the subscribe button, click the bell icon, and I'll let you know when that video comes out. Guys, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the OPPO Find X3 Pro. I'm Mike O'Brien. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.